nation's favorite TV ads. And behind each ad, a human face. Yes, it's important to remember that even people in advertising are almost human too. And some of them quite famous. Salman Rushdie gave us cream cakes, naughty but nice. Fay Weldon went to work on an egg. And was it not Freud who said, Henry loves his minced morsels? Puts a lot of stuff about dreams into perspective, doesn't it?
Have a break. Have a Kit Kat.
The water in Mallorca doesn't taste like what it ought to.
The water in Mallorca don't taste like what it ought to.
I like the Heineken ads, not least because they address, in a very funny way, the whole issue of social class, which of course is a staple of television. The royal family, Coronation Street, wherever you are on television, there's real authenticity.
Mallorca!
Mallorca?
Mallorca!
Mallorca?
It starts with the Pygmalion idea, My Fair Lady, but instead of having, as it were, the educated man and the other uneducated woman, it turns it on its head.
Right, Dale, any Danger Summit freshmen in here?
It's working with expectations that you know, and it's playing with them.
The water in Mallorca don't taste like what it ought to. God. The water in Mallorca don't taste like what it ought to.
She's cracked it. She's only cracked it.
You're absolutely wrong.
Heineken refreshes the pot what other beers cannot reach.
Last stop on round was old Ma Peggotty's place. It was like taking bread to top of the world. It was a grand ride back though. Our new baker had had kettle on and doorsteps of hot always ready. That's all meal always he'd say. Get it inside, you lad. Does you good, that ale, says he. I've never seen an appetite like it.
Hovis. Bread with a tradition of quality. It's as good today as it's always been.
It's the Milky Bar Kid.
The Milky Bar Kid is strong and tough, and only the best is good enough.
The Milky Bars are on me.
The creamiest milk, the whitest bar.
The Milky Bars are on me.
That's in Milky Bar.
No, the Milky Bars are on me.
It's the Milky Bar Kid.
We lived in Notting Hill Gate at the time, and I looked up and there was a poster. And it was the Milky Bar poster. And I was on it. And I suddenly realised, hey, this is something. I'm on this poster. And kids started saying, you're the Milky Bar Kid. We recognise you.
The Milky Bars are on me.
I had national health glasses on, and until then, I would imagine most of the children on television were absolutely perfect. But the idea of having someone, the Milky Bar Kid, who is all, powerful, can do anything, and he wears glasses, was absolutely brilliant.
It's the Milky Bar Kid.
I couldn't get on with the smell of it. I just didn't like white chocolate, and it was like cut, and then I'd spit it into a cup.
The goodness that's in Milky Bar.
The Milky Bars are on me.
They gave me boxes and boxes of Milky Bar, boxes of Nestle products. I was just dishing them out down my street, and I was the most popular kid in the street, I suppose.
It's the Milky Bar Kid.
The first shoot was in Spain, and they didn't tell me that the horse couldn't speak English.
The Milky Bar Kid is strong and tough, and only the best is good enough.
It was a stunt horse as well, so it had a tendency of when I wanted it to do something, it would just sit down, or, try and roll over, play dead.
The Milky Bars are on us.
It's the Milky Bar Kids.
There's a problem, love. It's plate wrappers in the plug-hole. You can almost guess the age of someone by asking them which was their favourite flake commercial. You know, everyone has their particular favourite because it happened at a particularly, I don't know, adolescent time of their life.
Only the crumbling flake is chocolate, tastes like chocolate never seen before.
Considered very sexy ad, just the whole scenario around it and the phallic shape of the chocolate. Well, what can you do with it? I mean, you know, there's not much you can do with it. I got into a lot of trouble. This I only found out when the commercial came out, because when I bit it, I put my tongue on it, which was a no-no. But I didn't, you know, I just did what came naturally to me. I ate. I think it's about 40 of them, and I felt very sick over the period of 2-3 days. I got very sick.
The way that the flake crumbles is very important as well, and very significant. It has to crumble. Brushing of the flakes off the lip, absolutely essential. It appears in most flake commercials. So many legends and fables surround these films, but from what I can gather, the idea of the lizard or the gecko on the telephone came from the lighting cameraman who said, why don't we add this touch of exotica? And it came to represent a lot more than that. Women said, yep, lizard, we like lizard on phone, and we're not going to tell you why.
The lizard wasn't there, unfortunately, because I rather like lizards.
The whole idea of loading a flake film with symbolism is quite a good fun thing as well.
Cadbury's Flake, the crumbliest, flakiest milk chocolate in the world.
So there's going to be a few of you out cheering this time, then?
About 40, I'd reckon.
Something for the ladies?
Oh, yeah. 2 bottles of sweet cherry, mate. Looks like we've overdone it with the sherry.
Yeah.
Australians wouldn't give a Castlemaine 4X for anything else.
The clock strikes 4. In millions of English homes, that means it's tea time. Tea time with its gleaming silver and tinkling teacup. What a happy time it is.
Strangely, I knew the ads because as a young man, I'd been a tea boy on it.
Is also the favorite.
Peter Sellers did the voice-over for
No
that.
matter how elegant the manners or charming the company.
I was sitting on a plane. I was coming back from a Venice festival, and a bit of turbulence. A guy spilled a glass of red wine over my wife, and he was really, distraught about it. And we got talking together. I didn't know him before. He was an agency producer, and he'd been telling me that he was trying to figure out how to do a chimp campaign that he was working on for Book Fund, and they'd made them in the past. They'd always been chimps with a lot of antics, doing whatever happened, and soundtracks put to them after the event. But he'd got in his mind a new direction to go in. We started kicking ideas around, and I'd seen the Laurel and Hardy piano moving film on television the night before, where they're shifting that piano in LA. And he'd been talking about the way that he wanted to get a sort of a carry-on atmosphere without the innuendo.
They're wider than a human being. They have longer arms, obviously, but they're wider. So I designed all the sets with the doors slightly wider than a human scaled-down door. So the doors and the pianos, everything else, were a different scale. It was a trick, but it was a good trick for me.
So I suddenly realised that I'd got a storyboard and I'd got a script and I knew exactly what I wanted to do and I knew who wanted to voice them, and I suddenly was faced with wild animals that I couldn't talk to. They wanted to please the trainers, and maybe for a little orange juice or a sweetie or a thank you or a kiss or a cuddle, they would do exactly what the trainers wanted. But they didn't always look in the right direction when they did it. And so standing back observing this, I thought, my God, what have I taken on?
Get in the hang of it. Mind the banisters, son.
Oh, I can't hold it, Dad.
Don't worry, son. I shifted more pianos than you've had up to this.
Mr. Shifter, like refreshment.
Oh, thank you most kindly, madam.
And we taught this chimp to thump the piano and play it, and he loved this piano. But when we got to move it up the staircase, I said to David, you've got to take the innards out of the piano. We can't use this piano anymore that he's trained on because it's going to be too heavy. So we stripped this whole thing. We now built a piano that looks exactly to him like the one he's practiced on, but it now has no sound. And what happened was, we come the day of the shoot, he didn't want to play it anymore. So what we had to do, we had to shoot the scene on the stairs with the piano with no innards and replace the original piano for the end scene because he wouldn't play it.
Dad, do you know the piano's on my foot?
You hum it, son. I'll play it.
At number 23, it's the Menace from Venice, the singing, stealing gondolier, whose voice was provided by Renee of Renee and Renata fame. Now, I bet you didn't know that.
Vicky. Flip's trying to read his paper, but he can smell the oxo-jack potatoes I'm cooking. A good, rich smell's half the secret of cooking, isn't it? Pretty tasty, I'd say.
Oxo during the war was used as a beverage, and it was a fairly cheap thing to have. But the idea of slightly up-marketing it mattered to Oxo.
Clever girl.
You see, the advertisement's right. Oxo gives a real man appeal.
I think they felt that if they could find a young housewife with a young family, young husband first of all, and then gradually introduce a family, that it would make it more acceptable in everybody's kitchen as a way of cooking.
Grab up, fellas. This should really warm them up.
Katie became a very real character to the viewers, and I was very often asked on television to do interviews. Well, eventually they realised that you couldn't really keep up this pretense that I really wasn't actually Katie. But it did for many years. They wanted this to continue, the fact that I was Katie and then there really was a husband and there really was a little boy David.
All right, then. Run along and get your shoes.
The point about the whole Oxo family, and it's called the Oxo family, which is important because it really is a kind of social history of the family from the 50s to the 90s, in that what you get is at first it's very much about male-female relations, male-female space, in which the female is looking for man appeal and male approval.
Clever girl.
Later, she seems to be more in control and more sexy, in fact. But of course, at the same time, she's got to use Oxo to seduce her man. Later, the family goes to America to develop the story partly. And there it's interesting that Katie is more empowered because she's allowed to make a speech.
I hope it'll be all right. I'm a little anxious about giving hamburgers to America.
Now you're all ready to barbecue. You would...
Well, thank you for making our first few months in America such fun.
I was very surprised when we finally stopped it. Although I'm now looking back, I realise that perhaps then that kind of family was a bit outdated.
At
number 21, it's a nap classic. It may look and sound like an outtake from Dallas or Dynasty, but this ambassador's party is really an ad for luxury chocolate, and probably dubbed differently for every single country in the Western world. How do they get the chocolates to stand up like that?
A sign of good taste. The concept was the dog, the cat and the mouse were in a room in front of a fire. It should be like a love story between the three animals. I have this thing about film making that children and animals are the best thing, because a child cannot act and an animal cannot act. You're documenting unpredictable realities because you don't know what they're going to do next. And that is what it's all about. I told the animal trainers what I wanted the mouse to do and where I wanted to go, and they got the urine of the mouse or something like that, and they laid a little track of it, and it kind of followed it. It was a sort of Mickey Mouse meets Hannibal Lecter. It kind of followed the scent, and then I just put the dog and the cat together and kept doing it until the mouse just happened to go there. Now and again someone had to dive in and go like that, but I kind of knew that you'd get it. When I was filming them, I noticed that the cat sniffed the dog with just a beat, and I noticed, as I was filming, and this is, one of the advantages of filming your own stuff, because you really get things immediately and you feel things immediately, and when I noticed that the cat sniffed the mouse just for a beat, so I thought, right, I'll turn that into a kiss. In fact, the only problem we had were with the people that owned the mouse and the person that owned the cat and the person that owned the dog, and they were all squabbling behind the scenes about how much they were getting paid, and just because yours is a dog, does that necessarily mean you should get more than me and my mouse? Because actually my mouse is probably just as important to the story as what. I mean, but the animals got on great.
Probably like new Andrex because it's beautifully soft.
Those puppies have got a sick sense of humour. Nevertheless, welcome back to our celebration of advertising. Our profession, which George Orwell described as the rattling of a stick inside a school bucket. Or was that a bargain bucket? Anyway, if like me you like a lot of chocolate on your biscuits, join our club, which tonight is proudly debating some exceeding good ads. The 100 best, in fact.
The Andrex ads are a real testament to the extraordinary things that British people will find cute. If you look at the raw materials of the advert, it doesn't really speak to me of cute. It's got, toilet roll is heavily featured, bog roll, whose normal associations are with 70s football hooliganism and rather unpleasant bodily functions.
But there's another reason for liking new Andrex.
It's got clearly a mad dog in it as well, who's become entangled in bog roll, knocking over some priceless family heirlooms. And everyone's delighted.
New Andrex. It goes a long, long way.
It was in a studio in Notting Hill. As I was being made up, I had this overwhelming nausea come over me, and I was sick for most of the day.
Stale smells up here often come from down there in your carpet.
Every time I went off set, I was being ill. I was not very well at all. So if I look a bit manic in the advert, that's why.
It's all you have to do.
I was not very well and leaping about up and down. didn't actually make me feel any better.
Do the shake and back and put the freshness back. Do the shake and back and put the freshness back.
The shake and back advertisement is bad, and I think everybody would agree with this, and probably not the people who made it or paid for it would agree with it, but I think most of the viewers would agree with it. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to acquire cult status, and it's very often to happen. Something can become so bad that it becomes good again in some bizarre way.
It's fantastic. And again, it's slagged off by the business and people saying, oh, it's so bad it's good. You get all that silliness again. But name me two other famous carpet cleaners.
When your carpet smells fresh, your room does too. Every time you vacuum, remember what to do.
The most difficult shot, I suppose, was the actual sprinkling of the powder on the floor. There were 3 holes in it. Now, in order to get this wonderful zigzag, if you just shake it back and forth or sideways, it doesn't work. You have to go up and down as well. So you have to do the dance. Otherwise, you don't get the powder out in the right way.
She's definitely a dirty woman. That means with all her skirts and her flicks, and she's doing all that on the carpet. And I just think that she's just hiding the evidence of a suburban gangbang before her poor rep husband Roger comes home to his lovely wife and his semi.
Do the shake and back and put the freshness back. Do the shake and back and put the freshness back. When your carpet smells fresh, your room does too. Every time you vacuum, remember what to do. Do the shake and back and put the freshness back.
Your best bet for a fuller flavour.
I'd like to buy the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees and honey bees and snow white turtle doves.
I was working in Italy as a nanny, and I was sitting in a cafe, and somebody came up and asked me if I'd like to be part of an advert. I had no idea what it was about till I think it was about a week later. Then I had to go to a hotel and learn a song for about 3 hours. And I can't hardly sing a note. So 3 hours of listening to a tape and then doing a song. And then the next day we went to the pony club in Italy and had to stand on boxes. I think there were 4 of us. And they filmed us singing I'd like to teach the world to sing.
I'd like to teach the world to sing, sing with me. Perfect harmony, perfect harmony. I'd like to fly the world home and keep it company.
I had no conception of what the rest of the advert was like. I didn't even know there was a huge crowd scene, there was multinationals. I didn't know anything. I mean, it was just a day of work, really, for some extra cash to go travelling.
To fly the world home and keep it company. It's the real thing. It's what the world wants today. It's the real thing. Football, football, football. We get nothing but football morning, noon and night.
Shut up.
Part of my advert was filmed on Hackney Marshes, because Hackney Marshes is a very famous area where people play Sunday League football and have for years and years. We foolishly try to keep the whole thing a secret, you know. And then, of course, within, I don't know, by the second morning, there was photographs all over the back of the Daily Mail. And kids were coming from everywhere. Eric Cantona gets out of his trailer, you know, and he walks into this crowd dressed in a Pub 11 football shirt and lines up next to these roofers and postmen. Mr. David Seaman, he turned up, he was there for about an hour, just turned up and
palmed the ball over the crossbar and left. Ian Wright got the most kind of affection, had the most affection from the players, the other players, the non-professionals. The thing that surprised me, they were just completely generous with everybody.
Come on, Eric, boy. Confidence is a preference for the habitual voyeur of what is known as. A morning suit can be avoided if you take a route straight through what is known as. John's got through and through, he gets intimidated by the dirty pigeons. They love a bit of it. Who's that gut rule marching? You should cut down on your pork life, mate. Get some exercise.
These guys would go home that night and say, I play with Ian Wright today, or I play with Eric Cantona. I passed the ball to Eric Cantona.
Anthony? Oh, congratulations on your exam results.
Grandma, I failed.
You failed? What do you mean you failed?
I mean I failed. Maths, English, physics, geography, German, woodwork, art. I failed.
You didn't pass anything?
Pottery.
Pottery? Very useful. Anthony, people will always need plates. Anything else?
And sociology.
An ology? He gets an ology and he says he's failed. You get an ology, you're a scientist.
Whether it's well done or hard luck, a phone call says a lot.
The most brilliant boys, the teachers who are wrong, you know, they can't mark. A lot of them can't see.
Hello. I wonder if you can help me. I'm looking for a book called Fly Fishing by J.R. Hart. Is it a joke? Oh, no. No, I've seen it advertised on television. Fly Fishing by J.R. Hart. It must be very popular because the chap in the advert couldn't find it anywhere.
My name? Oh, yes. It's J.R. Hartley.
I don't suppose you have a copy of Fly Fishing by J.R. Hartley. It is rather old.
So much advertising is punch, 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 and noise, music that's unnecessary, loud music that's unnecessary, and J.R. Hartley always came over as a lovely, quiet pause in it all, you know.
I don't suppose you have a copy of Fly Fishing by J.R. Hartley. It is rather old. It's by J.R. Hartley.
I pictured this gentle old boy, an author. He'd written a book and probably loaned his master copy to a friend.
Good old yellow pages. We don't just help with the nasty things in life, like a blocked drain. We're there for the nice things, too.
You do? Oh, that's wonderful. Can you keep it for me? My name? Oh, yes. It's J.R. Hartley.
It was made in 1983 and ran for 8 years before a wily publisher thought that this chap's going out so often, there's money in there, he's becoming a national figure almost. Best wishes, J.R. Hartley. As one of the newspapers at the time said, J.R. Hartley's biggest catch has been the public's imagination, and that's how you can put it, I suppose.
Right. Let's see what sort of swing you've got.
I really feel he's taken me over. Honestly, I feel more J.R. Hartley than I do Norman Lumsden these days.
I think I'm going to enjoy this.
If you watch a lot of French movies, as I have, they're all structured around father and daughter relationships. So at one level, this comes seen as one strand of French cinema history. But what's really smart about it, and I do think it's smart in some ways, although it wants to make me upchuck in others, is that actually it's not discrete. You know, like Dickens learned to, as it were, live across time, so you got a story going across 2 years. This ad developed.
Well, now you've found it, because while the Clio is certainly small, it's perfectly formed.
Foreigners can be presented on screen providing they match up to the stereotypic image we have of that particular country. Well, everybody in this country knows that French people are hopelessly romantic, amazingly sexy, fantastically virile and potent. All the girls are beautiful and all the men are handsome, all the fathers are distinguished. And this very much plays on these stereotypic roles.
I hated those people for some reason. They seemed so self-obsessed and French, I suppose. And it was just not... Did they sell Clio cars? They perhaps they did. I hope they did, but it just seemed inappropriate. I don't think anyone would make a sort of romantic getaway in a Clio Renault car. It's too small.
The English, even more than the British, have had a love-hate relationship with the French, which means that the Clio ad played only in Britain, because this is the only place it would make sense. It's difficult not to admire their chic and to loathe it simultaneously. And the best ads, like the best culture, play with us. They seduce us and then undermine, as it were, our expectations. And I think the Clio ad does that for the English, you know, who are only separated from France by 21 miles, but actually, emotionally, by a very long distance indeed.
Papa.
Nicole.
Come to fix your bits, Miss
I don't know what I'd do without you.
Leonard was a great close friend, and he said to me one day, "What's it like getting this you-know-who? How do you live with it? What's it really like?" I said, "It's like a mortgage, education fees for 3 children, a home for my ex-wife, a home for my parents, and a home for myself. That's what it's actually like."
You look very bewitching tonight, yeah?
Oh, Mr. Ritchie.
I said, "It might, if you're not very careful. It could happen to you one of these days."
Io Cinzano bianco, signora.
I think the original idea was trying to do sort of humorous spoofs on what was a beautiful people type commercial which Martini was famous for. The original scripts were ludicrous. They had Sean Connery and Woody Allen. None of those people would have ever done a commercial. So we got rid of those scripts when they were given to me. And Leonard Rossiter was involved, and I remember going around to his house, and we kind of agreed that actually the script was absolute rubbish.
Boring. Oh, sorry.
So Leonard said, "Oh, what I'd like to do is the old musical joke." And we said, "What's that?" So he picked up his cup of tea that was sitting there in his living room, and he looked at his watch and turned the cup, and he said, "You know, that joke." So he said, "That's a very good joke, particularly if it happened to be Joan Collins that you were spilling it on."
Can't you just smell those Italian wines, suffused with herbs and spices from 4 continents? I'm being boring. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Getting your head down, sweetie. Jolly good idea.
Leonard Rossiter, from the theatre, difficult. He felt he was the main man. He was the artist of the two, you know, and he would choreograph himself. I know the previous director had difficulty with him, and I tried to spend some time with him just to diffuse what I thought might be some awkward situations. And there was. I mean, even I'm doing this movement and that movement, and it'd be nice for the camera to see this and see that. I said, "Well, Leonard, I'm going to cut to your foot going in the tiger skin."
on the floor. And he said, what a massage, but they won't see what I'm doing with the rest of me.
Melissa! Mr. Yakitori and his aide?
Your professor.
No, sweetie. Joan was thoroughly professional, and she got the idea straight away. I mean, she was very intelligent, and absolutely unpretentious.
They just ordered our traditional drink.
There was great respect between them. They'd worked together wonderfully well, and this was a successful campaign. But he referred to her as the prop.
Oh! I think they like you, Marissa.
It worked. Boy, did it work. Because there was a period of time when the commercials were by far and away the most interesting thing you could see that evening on television. They were infinitely more entertaining than the programmes in those days.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Getting your head down, sweetie. Jolly good idea.
Cinsano Bianco.
Just look at the time. Talk follows tick, follows talk, follows tick. Yes, it's well after 8, Mr. Ambassador. But we're nearly there, inside the top 10 TV commercials of all time. Just one more break before we make haste and rise to the summit, the very peak and elite of TV ads.
Almost there. We put on our red braces, we placed our product, we rounded up the flagpole, and you saluted. In short, the Mensa and Del Monte have all said yes.
Doors opening. Going up.
Now it's time to tap it, unwrap it, and reveal the creme de la creme, the top of the pot noodle. Those 10 unforgettable ads created by men and women who must have had 3 shredded wheat on the day of their creation.
I think things go through certain waves. You know, like whereas in the 70s you had like blaxploitation, and like now I guess you could argue there's a queer exploitation going on. At the time the impulse ad came out, I think there was a real feeling in the society at that time that, you know, gay was more acceptable, it was more mainstream. It was just on the cusp of film, like TV shows like Queer as Folk about to come out. There were a few stereotypes that were thrown in as cutaways for the ad, like you'd see Quentin Crisp sat there, you know, and baby dog with leather on it. But I think the positives far outweigh the negatives.
When I first got approached by Walkers, I was still trying to play football in Japan, albeit spasmodically, I have to say. And my agent got hold of me and said that when you come home, I want to do a special ad to sort of celebrate the fact. I was outside the station, Leicester Station, shooting this bit with a newspaper vendor. And there were a lot of people watching. As you can imagine in the town centre. A little old lady comes over to me and she chats me on the show. She says, are you Gary Lineker? I said, yeah, that's right. She said, I thought it was. He said, what's going on here? Are they expecting anybody special?
The twist we gave it was he was known as Mr. Nice Guy because he'd never been booked in all his career. We thought it would be interesting to turn him into a nasty guy who pitched crisps because they were so irresistible.
Well, Walkers are part of PepsiCo, obviously an American company, and I think when they first went to them with the idea, I think A, they didn't know who the hell I was, and B, they thought, how can you do this thing where he's actually taking a chance? Crisp at the end, this is an incredibly cruel ending.
You can't have an English sporting hero being a thief. Come on. And we said, if everyone will know it's a joke, you don't have to worry about it. Oh, you can't do that. And they tried to force us to shoot the ending where he gives the crisps fat to the kid. But we ignored that.
There's no more Mr. Nice Guy.
They still can't understand how we did it and how English people don't go against him because he pinches kids' twists.
I've done others with the Spice Girls. I did one with Ulrika Johnson, which was particularly tough having to line top of him for half a day. And Gazza, likewise, we did one with him. I remember they put this contraption in where it came over his ears and right under his eyes and it spurted out the water. Well, when they initially did it and we started, we just couldn't do it. I laughed at it. It's just hilarious.
He's very natural, you know, and he's not an actor, but gradually he's got more and more confident, and, you know, he's as good as any actor that I work with now. He's just there, and he knows exactly what to do, he knows how to hold the crisp perfectly, and, you know, and he won't be ever caught with a packet of Golden Wonder. You know that about Gary.
Those Sally Hamlet commercials, they were always the most fun things to do because there was no set of rules, you know. In the end, you just took what was the most ridiculous or wonderful situation, and then there was suddenly the product at the end of it.
Happiness is a cigar called Hamlet.
But I think that, you know, we were using humour and in a way that no one else was, and so the commercials stuck out.
That thing of when something goes wrong, this was satisfaction, this would get you over the hump. Always the best campaign ideas in advertising is when it's very simple and where you can put it into any area. You can borrow from any area, whether it's film, theatre, real life.
Happiness is a cigar called Hamlet, a mild cigar.
Don't start her talking, I could talk all night.
We went down to Wardour Street, to a cave in Wardour Street. So I took my son, Elvis Costello, as he is now, who's then called Declan Patrick McManus. We were in a club, and obviously the idea was that there was no better drink than our white lemonade to quench the thirst in this hot atmosphere. And we were dressed up in T-shirts with the band name on, which was The Thirst.
I'm a secret lemonade drinker. Always. I'm a trying to give it up, but it's one of those nights. Always lemonade.
I did more than one voice. I did the bit about the secret lemonade drinker, the Presley voice.
Always lemonade.
And when we rode out, I said to Declan, let's do it like the Beatles. So we did the Liverpool noise, because both of us have got a Liverpool background. And we did the, always.
Even as a kid, I always used to like the idea of our white lemonade because it seemed like so non-corporate compared to, say, Coca-Cola or, McDonald's, which are these huge multinationals. Our white lemonade, I never knew where that had come from. and who was R. White. And it always used to conjure up this idea of a bloke in shed, you know, distilling it, while his wife would say, "Come on in now, R. White, your tea's ready."
I'm a secret lemonade drinker. Always, always. And we're trying to give it up, but it's one of those nights. Always, always, always lemonade. I'm a secret lemonade drinker. Always, always, always lemonade. Always lemonade.
The ad was running at a cinema, it prefixed the movie, and I hadn't seen it on the telly at that point, so I went to the cinema just to see the ad. Combined with the music, I mean, Marvin Gaye's Heard It Through the Grapevine, it just all sort of came together, this very kind of hormonal, sexy, pubescent dream for me, really. And I mean, Nick Cayman was just sex on legs. A pair of jeans that you didn't really need, suddenly they became a must-have item. And yeah, I mean, I only wanted them because Nick Cayman wore them. There wasn't really life after Levi's for Nick Cayman because he broke the golden rule. He talked. It totally demystified him. You know, him running around singing this rather rubbish pop song did so little for me, and it was like, next!
Soft, smooth, luxurious, the sensation of pure cream.
When the first ad came out, it was so different to any other ad that you saw on telly. The shock element at the end, I remember thinking, what great ads they were.
Right, heck, you smell gorgeous tonight, pal.
It was a very sophisticated way of showing a northern drink, and it worked. I was modelling when I was first last in the Boddington's advert. I've been modelling for about 7, 8 years, I think it's been, and it was just like any other day. It was a request, a casting for a commercial, and I was up north doing a catalogue shoot, and I got the facts of the script for the ad, and I read it, and I just thought, this is so perfect for me.
The body is you.
It was a spoof on a Calvin Klein commercial. It was shot in Malibu in a huge house. And basically I had half-naked men walking around all day, these gorgeous models, and me in a white flowy dress. It was like a dream come true, and I just had a marvellous time. What do you think? That's strong, Chuck. Try lifting one of these. Hey, Harkwell, your trolley's not right way round. And I knew something would happen to me once the advert was on because they'd been so high profile in the past. But I didn't quite know what, and I thought, you know, maybe it'll just be a few more modelling jobs. I didn't think for a second I would end up doing television.
Total amount of coffee drunk by the Big Breakfast team this year. Oh dear. Yeah, in cups. It's done in pints.
It's done in pints.
Probably easier for you to work out. I know you're involved.
Do you want a flake in that, love?
Sounds running. Let me know.
At 4, an example of a program that started off on Channel 4 before being turned into a series of classic ads.
I had a glossy and everything, but the person seems quite a good side. They've got a big wall screen, big golf play around, and there's lots of them there. They look really happy.
The agency wanted just one locked-off shot showing a character chatting to an interviewer, basically.
Oh, it's good to come back into a warm flat after you've just done a run, and it's always nice to come into somewhere warm if we've been freezing to death outside on a 10-mile slog.
They weren't scripted at all. We just went out and looked for people who might be suitable, who were just very chatty. So I went to this guy called Frank. He'd lived in Bristol for about 20 years, and he comes from Bolton, I think, and he hadn't changed one minute iota of his accent at all. And just recorded him in his flat.
They should be sort of fairly modern in design, and they got to be easily turned off and onable.
The family that actually owned the corner shop around just down the street from the studio, we made them into penguins.
Yes, they are easy to clean. They're just white
over, and it looks like new.
It looks good. And
Not like some of these other things, you know, that are just there to, you know, oh, this looks pretty in my kitchen. You know, it's there to do its job, and it doesn't do it well.
The only limitation was that they had to talk about electricity because everybody thought they were for gas. And that's perhaps the only failure of the advert. People still refer to them as the gas advert.
You know, having grown up in Brazil with a lot of fruits and a good climate, the temperature is very important. I wouldn't be able to sit in my chair if I'm shivering and feeling damp. That's when the electrical heating comes into the picture. It's like the last piece of the jigsaw. Well, it is. It's very comfortable, affordable, comfortably affordable.
Hello, Johnny. I think we might use a video replay here.
Super, Ralph. Let's do that.
Oh, yes, we could be in for a quintessential Tango Chase sensation here.
It was meant to be taking the mickey out of other ads that were on the TV at the time, like the coffee ads that are out there and stuff like that. You have a drink and you go, ooh, whoopee, and flowers bloom. And we decided to express this in a really OTT fashion. It started with a punch in the mouth, you know, because we was trying to do it as kind of stupid and slapstick as possible. Then it moved to a kick up the arse for obvious reasons, and then for that it was still deemed as being too aggressive. So it went on to being sort of Morecambe and Wise-esque little tap on the cheek.
The guy we used, he was like a Shakespearean actor. He was the one who made it last the most. He wanted someone who was obviously big and bold.
It's the way he moved as well. It was physically how he ran was just surreal.
It just illustrates the bite and buzz. Oh!
The guy that was being slapped, he was really good actually. Again, I thought he was a really good actor. And he was just the best at reacting to being hit. He never made a big deal out of it. A lot of the actors were like, I got hit, you know, and it was just like, he just did it very cool and very kind of slightly dopey.
Let's look again.
It sparked a playground craze, and, you know, people used to go around sort of slapping each other saying, you've been tangoed. And it was all very entertaining and great fun, and there was no problems until we got a phone call one day from a surgeon who said, look, I'm not the complaining type, but I thought you'd like to know that I did an operation on a child this morning with a perforated eardrum, and I was wheeling him into the operating theatre on the gurney, and said to him, what happened to you then? And he said, I've got tangoed, Gus. And I mean, okay, it's funny, but we pulled the ad that afternoon. And what we did is changed it to the kiss. So instead, the genie rushed up and planted a kiss on the bloke instead, which worked just as well.
You know when you've been tangoed.
What's the good of a beautiful bango without chicken won't ring bells with a pile of something else if it's not
If an alien came from another planet and saw someone bothering to clean up a potato, peel it, boil it 20 minutes, mash it all up, and then put it on a plate, when they can just pour hot water on a powder and serve it, they think they were mad. And from that developed the script.
On your last trip, did you discover what the Earth people eat?
They eat a great many of these. They peel them with their metal knives. Boil them for 20 of their minutes. Then they smash them all to bits. They are clearly a most primitive people.
We were building the sets up on 6-foot rostrums with 3 puppeteers per Martian underneath with all these calipers.
Something strange has appeared on the Earth scanner. Let me observe.
They moved pretty crudely with levers that went down through a platform. And underneath this platform were loads of blokes pulling levers which turned the head, lifted the arm or opened the mouth or swiveled the eyes around. It was all pretty crude, but it was part of their charm, I think, that they were crude.
After the day's labours, how nice to come home to the wife. A pair of slippers and a plate of Cadbury Smash.
The director at the time, Bob Brooks, was well known for being short-tempered, and he used to let fly at the Martians, saying, "What the hell are you doing at the back? Will you pay attention?"
But all the puppets, the puppeteers, were taking the mick out of the direction, what have you, and the guy and had all these puppets lying on their bed, in their spaceship, all lying around, and they were sort of talking in American voices and doing jokes, and they decided to make them laugh. Great, we should do that. That's how it happened.
Well, we had this little gimmick of having the S drop down to mash, before mash gets smashed, and we wanted a jingle to get it in people's heads. So we went off to see Cliff Adams, who was top jingle writer at the time.
And he said the idea, he said, is it's for mash, get smash. So do you think you can do anything musically? And I said, yes, I think so. I said, we could, for instance, I said, do something like...
Dang, 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 dang. It's perfect.
I said, no, John, that's not it. I was illustrating what we could do. And he said, no, I don't want any more. Just do that.
You know, in a millisecond, he'd done something which ran for 10 years. And he got money from it every time it played.
And then what's better than to curl up satisfied in front of your favourite comedy program?
And after peeling oil for 20 minutes...
Oh, mash, get smash.
Unlike the Duracell rabbit and the Goglen couple, we've gone on and on and on for long enough now. In short, the end is nigh. I do hope you've enjoyed our starry odyssey, but if you're not completely satisfied, then do please return it in the original wrapper stating when and where you bought it. Remember, contents may settle during packaging, investments can go up and down, and that your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up your payments. For full details, see last week's TV Times. In the meantime, we leave you with an ad that you obviously thought was good for you. The TV commercial that polled more votes than any other in our top 100. A classic? I should say so.
I suppose it's the equivalent of filming an avalanche. To be in front of an avalanche as an avalanche is careering towards you. It's that sensation, I'm sure. I mean, what we want to do is create something that's kind of emotionally arresting and visually arresting, and having just something quite epic and quite extraordinary to happen on a TV screen.
He waits. That's what he does.
We were just kind of inquisitive about how the product worked, and we didn't really understand about the weight. So we kind of went through a few bars and we kind of looked at the way it did it, and we actually timed it. We worked out that it takes 119.5 seconds to pour a pint of Guinness, or to pour and then wait for it to settle. So then we thought that's quite interesting. Good things come to those who wait. Just like you have to wait for a pint of Guinness, you have to wait for a wave.
We had umpteen experts on the end of phone lines telling us where the waves were expected and where various sets were going to come in and on what shore. So it was unplannable, the shoot. You just had to be out there and wait until you knew where the surf was coming and it was going to be sizable enough to film. We didn't want the perfect face. We wanted people who looked like they'd genuinely wait for this extraordinary wave, and only they would know where it was going to come. The guy who stars in it, who's not really a very good surfer, he was very out of condition, which we liked. I mean, we found him under a palm tree on a beach, so we put him on 40-foot waves, and he looked terrified.
A real Polynesian surfer waiting for the most amazing wave of his life, and that's what it is. And then it becomes what's in his mind's eye. The horses become symbolic because they become the experience of riding a 60-foot wave and what it is in his head.
We needed to shoot the horses in a certain way that obviously worked with the image underneath. You'd have jumps set up against blue, and you'd have these white horses jumping repeatedly over these fences, and you'd set your camera and your lens at a certain position, and hopefully the two pieces would composite together.
He waits. That's what he does. And I tell you what, tick followed tock, followed tick, followed tock, followed tick. Ahab says, I don't care who you are, here's to your dream. The old sailors returned to the bar. Here's to you, Ahab. And the fat drummer hit the beat with all his heart. Here's to waiting.
And the full result